The family meeting was supposed to start at 7 p.m. sharp, but I knew better. I arrived at my parents' house at 7:30, pulling up in my 10-year-old Toyota Camry. Through the living room windows I could see them all already gathered. Mom, Dad, my brother Marcus, his wife Stephanie, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Pete, and even my cousins James and Lisa. They were huddled around the dining table like a corporate board about to vote on a hostile takeover. I'm Alexander Mitchell, 34, and I knew exactly what this emergency family meeting was about. 3 days ago Marcus had lost his job, again. This time he'd been fired from his VP position at a tech startup for creative differences, which was code for showing up late and unprepared to investor meetings. As I walked up the pathway to the front door, I patted the leather messenger bag hanging at my side. Inside was a folder containing documents that would end this conversation before it began. But first I wanted to hear what they had to say. Alex. Finally, Mom rushed to hug me as I entered. She was wearing her pearl necklace, the one reserved for special occasions and guilt trips. We've been waiting. Come sit down. I took the only empty chair directly across from Marcus. His designer watch caught the light, a $15,000 Rolex he'd bought last month, despite being behind on his mortgage payments. Stephanie sat beside him, their 3 kids thankfully absent for this ambush. Son, Dad began, using his CEO voice from his days running Mitchell Manufacturing before retirement. We've been discussing the family's current situation, and we've come to a decision that requires your cooperation. I nodded, saying nothing. 10 years ago I would have jumped in, eager to please. But I'd learned that silence made people uncomfortable enough to reveal their true intentions. Your brother's company has undergone some unexpected changes, Dad continued, carefully avoiding the word fired. And with 3 children to support, what your father's trying to say, Mom interrupted, is that Marcus and his family need a fresh start. Somewhere peaceful, away from the city stress. Somewhere like Sunset Cove. There it was, Sunset Cove, my beach house. The one I'd bought 5 years ago when everyone told me I was crazy for investing my savings in some rundown shack by the ocean. It's perfect, Aunt Sarah chimed in. The schools there are excellent and the children would have so much space to play. I looked at Marcus, who was studying his manicured nails. He hadn't said a word yet, letting the family do his bidding. Classic Marcus. The house has 4 bedrooms, Stephanie added, speaking for the first time. You only use it on weekends, Alex. We'd be there year-round, really making it a home. My cousin Lisa nodded enthusiastically. Plus, you're always working in the city anyway. When was the last time you even went there? Last weekend, actually. And every weekend for the past 5 years. They didn't know about my remote work arrangement or the small business I'd built from that rundown shack. They didn't know a lot of things. We've taken a vote, Mom announced, her voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel. Everyone agrees this is the best solution. Marcus and his family need this, Alex. You have to think about the children. Ah yes, the children. The same ones Marcus had used as leverage when he needed money for his failed restaurant venture, and his failed food truck business, and his failed cryptocurrency investment. It's decided, Mom declared, mistaking my silence for acceptance. Your brother gets your beach house. He has kids. Everyone nodded in agreement, a chorus of bobbleheads unified in their certainty. They'd planned this perfectly. The full family attendance, the guilt trip, the children card. In their minds this was already done. I reached into my messenger bag and pulled out the folder. Funny you should mention kids, I said quietly. Here's what Marcus did with his last house. The folder contained mortgage documents, bank statements, and photos. As I spread them across the table, Aunt Sarah gasped. The first photo showed Marcus's previous home, is a $1.2 million property he'd convinced our parents to co-sign for 3 years ago. The second photo showed the same house 6 months later, after Marcus had taken out 3 separate home equity loans without telling anyone. The third photo showed the foreclosure notice. That's private family business, Marcus sputtered, his face reddening. Private, I laughed. Like the private gambling accounts you opened in your children's names, or the private credit cards you maxed out under Mom and Dad's social security numbers. More documents emerged from my folder. Credit reports, collection notices, legal warnings, the paper trail of destruction Marcus had left behind. How did you get these? Marcus demanded, standing up so quickly his chair toppled backward. I'm on the board of directors at Coastal Community Bank now, I replied calmly. Have been for 2 years. When you applied for loans using our parents' information, it raised some red flags. Mom's hand flew to her pearl necklace. Board of directors. But you work in IT support. I own an IT security consulting firm. We provide services to banks, including fraud detection. That's how I could afford the beach house in the first place. The room fell silent as I pulled out the final document. A detailed report of Marcus's gambling activities over the past 5 years. Nearly $700,000 lost, most of it borrowed money. Alex, Dad's voice had lost its CEO authority. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? Every time I tried to warn you about Marcus's schemes, I was called jealous, unsupportive, cold-hearted. Stephanie was staring at the gambling records, her hands shaking. The children's college funds, she whispered. You said they were in secure investments. Marcus's face had gone from red to pale. I was going to win it back. I had a system, like your system for the restaurant, or the food truck, or the crypto investments. I stood up, gathering the documents. The beach house isn't just my weekend getaway, it's my company's headquarters. We employ 30 people there now, all local residents. We're the largest private employer in Sunset Cove. Mom was crying silently, Dad's arm around her shoulders. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Pete were studying the carpet like it held the secrets of the universe. My cousins had mysteriously disappeared from the room. So no, Marcus can't have my beach house. Neither can his children, though I've already set up trust funds for their education. Locked accounts that neither Marcus nor anyone else can access until they're 18. You did what? Stephanie's head snapped up. $50,000 for each child, invested conservatively. Because they shouldn't suffer for their father's choices. Marcus lunged across the table, but Uncle Pete caught him before he could reach me. You smug bastard, he shouted. You think you're better than me. You and your perfect little business. I picked up my messenger bag, suddenly tired. No, Marcus, I just think before I act. And right now, I'm thinking it's time for everyone to face reality. Alex, please. Mom stood up, tears streaming down her face. We can work this out as a family. We can, I agreed. But first, Marcus needs professional help. I've already spoken to a gambling addiction counselor and a financial advisor. They're expecting your call. I placed 2 business cards on the table. Until then, I've flagged all your accounts. No more loans, no more credit cards, no more enabling. You can't do this to me. Marcus struggled against Uncle Pete's grip. I'm not doing this to you. I'm doing this for you. For your children, for our parents who've sacrificed everything to keep bailing you out. I headed for the door, then turned back one last time. The beach house isn't for sale or transfer, but when you're ready to actually change your life, my door is always open. I walked out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the sounds of Marcus's protests and Mom's sobs. My phone buzzed, a text from my operations manager at Sunset Cove. Team finished the new security system installation. Ready for Monday's client meeting. I smiled, getting into my Camry. They'd never understood why I kept this old car when I could afford better. They'd never understood a lot of things about me. But maybe now, finally they would start to learn. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. First Mom, then Dad, then Aunt Sarah. I let them all go to voicemail. They'd had years to listen to me. Now it was my turn to decide when and how we'd talk. I drove to Sunset Cove, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of gold. The rundown shack had transformed into a modern office complex, its solar panels glinting in the morning light. My employees would start arriving soon. Local people who'd been given a chance to build careers in tech without leaving their coastal hometown. As I parked in my usual spot, not the reserved CEO space, but a regular spot among my team, I saw Stephanie's number flash on my phone. This call, I decided to answer. The counselor, she said without preamble. The one you recommended. Does the offer still stand? Yes, I replied. For all of you. There was a long pause. Thank you, Alex. Not for the house, but for caring enough to say no. I ended the call and walked into my office. The ocean breeze carrying the salt smell I'd grown to love. On my desk was a framed photo, not of family vacations or holiday gatherings, but of the first team I'd hired here. Local kids with community college degrees and a hunger to learn. They'd helped build this company while Marcus was chasing get-rich-quick schemes. My assistant knocked on the door. "Your 9 a.m. is here early. The venture capital team. Send them in," I said, straightening my tie. "And Sarah, cancel my dinner plans for tonight. I think I'll be having a long conversation with my family instead." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. She'd been one of those first hires, now running our entire administrative division. As I prepared to meet with potential investors, I thought about the folder in my messenger bag. I hadn't shown them everything. Like the trust I'd set up for Mom and Dad's retirement, or the therapy sessions I'd prepaid for Marcus. Sometimes being called cold-hearted meant being strong enough to do what was right, not what was easy. The investors walked in, all expensive suits and firm handshakes. They'd driven down from the city, probably expecting to find a small-town IT operation they could easily acquire. "Welcome to Sunset Cove Technologies," I said, gesturing to the ocean view behind me. "Let me show you what we've built here." And as I launched into our presentation, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation or humiliation. Sometimes it's simply building something meaningful while others are too busy tearing things down. The next week unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of chaos. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from various family members, each playing their assigned role in this drama. Monday morning started with a series of texts from Marcus. "You think you're so perfect. Did you have to humiliate me in front of everyone? I'll show you what real success looks like." I was in the middle of a team meeting when Dad called. Unlike Marcus's threats, his voice carried the weight of genuine concern. "Son, your brother's selling his Rolex collection, all of them. Says he's starting a new business venture." I muted my microphone on the video call. "Let me guess, cryptocurrency again?" "No," Dad sighed. "He's talking about opening a chain of beach clubs. Says he knows people who'd be interested in Sunset Cove's shoreline." My team was discussing our new cybersecurity contract, but my mind raced ahead to what Marcus might be planning. He'd always been creative when it came to revenge. "Dad, make sure he doesn't use your information for any loan applications. And tell Mom to check her credit cards." "Already done," he replied, surprising me. We took your advice. Met with the financial advisor yesterday. Alex, we had no idea how bad things were." The vulnerability in his voice made me pause. My father, the former CEO who'd built a manufacturing empire from scratch, sounded lost. "How's Mom taking it?" She's angry. Not at you," he added quickly. "At herself. At me. We enabled this for so long." After the call, I pulled up the security feeds for the beach house. Sure enough, there was Marcus, walking along the property line, with two men in expensive suits. Even from the camera angle, I could see him gesturing expansively, probably spinning tales about beachfront developments and exclusive memberships. I texted my property manager, "Increase security patrols. My brother's planning something." The response came quickly, "Already on it." He tried to schedule a property viewing with a potential investor this morning, claimed to be a co-owner. I was about to respond when my assistant Sarah knocked. "Your sister-in-law is here," she said, her expression carefully neutral. "With the kids." Stephanie stood in the reception area, looking smaller than I remembered. Her designer clothes had been replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. The children, Anna 10, Lucas 8, and little Sophie 5, clustered around her legs. "Uncle Alex." Sophie broke free, running toward me with the unrestrained enthusiasm only a 5-year-old can muster. "Daddy said you live in a castle by the sea." I picked her up, noting how Stephanie flinched at the mention of Marcus. "Not quite a castle, squirt. But how about a tour?" The next hour was spent showing my nieces and nephew around the office. They marveled at the 3D printers, played with the VR headsets in our testing lab, and pressed their faces against the windows overlooking the ocean. When Sarah took them to the break room for ice cream, Stephanie finally spoke. "Marcus emptied our joint accounts yesterday. All of them." I led her to my office, closing the door. How much? Everything except the children's new trust funds, the ones you set up. He couldn't touch those. She twisted her wedding ring. He says he has investors, that he's going to show everyone what real success looks like. The beach club's idea, she nodded. He's been meeting with some people. I don't like them, Alex. They're not legitimate businessmen. One of them mentioned something about offshore accounts and shell companies. I pulled up the security footage from earlier. These men. Stephanie leaned forward, then recoiled. Yes, the one on the left. Marcus says he's a real estate developer, but I overheard them talking about cleaning money through property investments. I need you to tell me everything you've heard, I said, reaching for my phone. But first I'm calling my lawyer. We need to protect you and the kids. Just then my computer pinged with an alert. Someone was attempting to access our company's financial records using Marcus's old password, one he'd seen me type in years ago when I'd helped him with his laptop. He's trying to hack us, Stephanie whispered, reading the alert. Not very well, I muttered, typing quickly. But his new friends might be more sophisticated. I called an emergency meeting with my security team, leaving Stephanie with Sarah and the children. Within an hour we traced the access attempts to a cyber cafe in the city. The security cameras there showed Marcus with one of the men from the beach, hunched over a laptop. Should we call the police? My head of security asked. I shook my head. Not yet. Let's see what they're really after. Over the next few hours, we tracked their digital footprints. They weren't just targeting my company. They tried to access the property records for Sunset Cove, the local zoning board, and several bank accounts. Your brother's new friends are connected to some serious people, my security chief reported. They've been involved in real estate fraud across 3 states. They find desperate people with valuable property, convince them to invest in fake developments, then disappear with the money and titles. I thought about Marcus, desperate to prove himself, probably not even realizing he was being used as a pawn. My phone buzzed. Mom. Alex, you need to come to the house right now. Marcus is here with his business partners. They're talking about some kind of family investment opportunity. Your father, I'm worried he's considering it. Don't sign anything, I said, already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes. I spent it making calls, first to my lawyer, then to a friend at the FBI, who specialized in financial crimes, and finally to Uncle Pete, who'd always been the voice of reason in family disputes. When I arrived, the scene in the living room was eerily similar to our family meeting a week ago. But this time, Marcus stood at the head of the table, pointing to glossy brochures showing luxurious beach clubs and yacht marinas. Alex, he said with fake enthusiasm. Perfect timing. I was just showing Mom and Dad how we can turn your little IT operation into something really profitable. The 2 men from the beach were there, looking polished and professional in their expensive suits. One of them stepped forward, hand extended. James Davidson, Legacy Development Group. Your brother tells us you have quite the property portfolio in Sunset Cove. I ignored his hand. Interesting. Because according to the FBI, James Davidson died in 1989. Care to share your real name, Mr. Kozlov? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The man's friendly smile vanished. Marcus looked between us, confusion replacing his smugness. What are you talking about? These are legitimate businessmen. Are they, Marcus? Did you even Google them before bringing them to our parents? Before emptying your children's college accounts? That money is an investment, Marcus shouted. Tell them. He turned to his partners. Tell them about the guaranteed returns. But the men were already backing toward the door, their practiced charm replaced by cold calculation. This has been informative, the second man said. Mr. Mitchell, we'll be in touch about our investment opportunity. No, you won't, I replied, just as police sirens became audible in the distance. Because in about 30 seconds you'll be meeting some federal agents who are very interested in your investment opportunities across state lines. What happened next was chaos. The men bolted for the door. Marcus tried to follow, but Uncle Pete, who'd arrived moments after me, caught him in a bear hug. Mom collapsed into Dad's arms, and through the window I could see FBI agents surrounding the house. Hours later, after statements had been taken, and Marcus's business partners were in custody, we sat in the kitchen like survivors of a storm. I didn't know, Marcus kept saying, his face in his hands. I really thought this was my chance to prove myself. By stealing your children's money, Mom's voice was sharp, by trying to scam your own family. They promised, he started, but Dad cut him off. No more promises, Marcus. No more schemes. Tomorrow you're checking into the rehabilitation program Alex recommended. No arguments. For the first time in years, Marcus didn't argue. He looked broken, but maybe that's what needed to happen for him to rebuild. The trust funds, he said quietly, for the kids, can they be restored? They were never emptied, I replied. When you tried to access them, it triggered an alert. The transfer confirmation you received was fake, a security measure I built in. You knew I'd try to take the money. I knew you'd need help stopping yourself. Stephanie arrived later, with the children having received the all-clear from my security team. As the kids rushed to hug their father, I saw something change in Marcus's eyes. Maybe the first real understanding of what he'd almost lost. I need help, he whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. I know, I said. That's why we're all here. 3 months passed like a tide washing away old debris. The beach house, once the center of our family drama, became a symbol of something entirely different. Recovery. Marcus checked into the rehabilitation center the day after the FBI incident. It was a top-tier facility specializing in gambling addiction and financial compulsion disorders. The kind of place that costs more per month than most people's annual salary. When he asked how he could afford it, I simply handed him an envelope. Remember that crypto investment you convinced me to make 5 years ago? He nodded, shame crossing his face. He'd borrowed $50,000 from me, promising incredible returns, then lost it all in a week. I didn't lose that money, I revealed. I made the investment myself, cashed out at the peak, and set it aside. Been saving it for when you were ready to accept real help. The first family therapy session was brutal. We gathered in a sun-filled room at the rehab center, facing years of buried resentment and enabling behavior. Mom couldn't stop crying as Marcus detailed how he'd first started gambling in college, using his student loans at underground poker games. I always thought I was one big win away from making you proud, he told Dad, from being the successful son you wanted. Dad, who'd spent decades trying to mold his sons into his image of success, broke down for the first time I could remember. I was proud, he choked out, until I started measuring that pride in dollar signs instead of character. Meanwhile, I threw myself into reorganizing our family's financial structure. With my parents' permission, I set up a comprehensive trust system. Their assets were protected, but more importantly, there were accountability measures in place. No one person, including me, could make major financial decisions without multiple approvals. Stephanie found her own kind of strength during this time. She went back to school, taking online courses in business administration. 3 nights a week, she worked at our office, learning the operations side of the company. I never wanted the luxury cars or designer clothes, she confided one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports. I just didn't know how to tell Marcus that his dreams were destroying us. The children adapted with the resilience only kids can muster. We established a routine. Every Saturday, they'd spend the day at the beach house while Stephanie attended her classes. I taught Emma basic coding. Lucas discovered a passion for marine biology through our office's ocean monitoring systems, and little Sophie appointed herself the official greeter for our weekend staff. One particular Saturday, as I watched the kids building sand castles through my office window, Marcus called from rehab. The therapist thinks I'm ready for day passes, he said, his voice steadier than I'd heard in years. Would it be okay if I came to see the kids at the beach house? I thought about our security protocols, the business meetings we conducted here, the trust we'd built with our clients. Yes, I said finally, but with conditions. The conditions were simple. He'd be accompanied by his counselor, the visits would be supervised, and he'd have to attend family therapy sessions with Stephanie before any solo visits were permitted. Thank you, he said, then hesitated. Alex, about those men, the ones who wanted to scam the family. The FBI handled it, I assured him. Their organization was shut down last month. Turns out our case helped crack a 3-year investigation. No, it's not that, I need to tell you something. They approached me first, weeks before the family meeting about the beach house. They knew everything about our family, about your company. Someone had done research. My blood ran cold. Who? Cousin James, Marcus admitted. He's been working with them for months. That's why he and Lisa disappeared during the family meeting when you showed those documents. They knew their cover was blown. This explains some anomalies our security team had detected. Attempts to access our systems that seemed too sophisticated for Marcus or his scammer friends. Are you telling me this because you want to make things right? I asked, or because you're still hoping to prove something? The old Marcus would have gotten defensive, angry. This version took a deep breath. I'm telling you because I need to stop hiding things. The therapist says secrets are like poison. They keep us sick. After the call, I contacted my FBI friend again. Within days, both our cousins were brought in for questioning. The family was rocked by another scandal, but this time felt different. We faced it together, no secrets, no enabling. 6 months after the failed beach house takeover, we held a different kind of family meeting. This time at Sunset Cove, with the ocean providing a calming backdrop to what needed to be said. Marcus stood before the family, 6 months sober from gambling, looking both humbled and somehow stronger. I owe each of you an apology, he began. Not just for the money or the lies, but for making you believe that loving me meant supporting my self-destruction. He turned to face me directly. Alex, you weren't cold-hearted for refusing to give me the beach house. You were the only one brave enough to show real love. The kind that says no when no is needed. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Dad squeezed her hand, his own eyes suspiciously bright. I'm not asking for trust, Marcus continued. I know that has to be earned. But I am asking for a chance to show you who I can be without the gambling, without the schemes, without the desperate need to prove myself. Stephanie stood up and walked to his side, taking his hand. We've been going to couples therapy, she announced. And we've made a decision. We're selling our house in the city. Moving to a smaller place. Living within our means. The family absorbed this, remembering the many times Marcus had refused to downsize, to admit their lifestyle was unsustainable. There's more, Marcus added. Alex has offered me a job. All eyes turned to me. A real job, I clarified. Entry level, it support. No special treatment. He'll start at the bottom like everyone else, contingent on continuing his recovery program. But the beach house, Mom started, stays exactly as it is. Marcus interrupted. A successful business that employs local people and gives opportunities to those who earn them, including maybe someday me. As the sun set over Sunset Cove, casting long shadows across the beach where my nieces and nephews still played, I watched my family begin to heal. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. The beach house stood as it always had, waves lapping at its shore, but it was no longer a source of conflict. Instead, it had become a lighthouse of sorts, guiding our family towards safer harbors. 1 year after the family meeting that changed everything, we gathered at Sunset Cove for a different kind of celebration. My company had just been named one of the top employers in the state, and more importantly, Marcus was receiving his 1-year sobriety chip. The beach house, once a symbol of family conflict, had transformed into our healing ground. The conference room where we once held tense meetings now hosted weekly family dinners. The children had their own designated study area in the building's east wing, where Emma was already teaching her younger siblings basic programming. Marcus had surprised everyone months, especially himself, by excelling in his entry-level position. He started in basic IT support, handling customer calls with a humility that would have been unimaginable a year ago. No special treatment, just like I'd promised, but he earned every promotion through genuine effort. Your brother's got a natural talent for client relations, my HR director mentioned during a performance review. When he's not trying to prove something, he actually connects with people. Stephanie had completed her business degree and now managed our client services department. She and Marcus sold their luxury cars and moved into a modest 3-bedroom house, 10 minutes from the beach. They paid their own mortgage, lived within their means, and for the first time in their marriage, seemed genuinely happy. The most profound change, though, was in our parents. Mom stopped wearing her guilt-trip pearls, and Dad retired his CEO voice entirely. They attended therapy regularly, learning to love their children for who they were, not who they wanted them to be. On this particular evening, as we all gathered on the beach house deck, Marcus stood up to make an announcement. "I've been working on something," he said, pulling out his laptop. "With Alex's permission and supervision, I developed a program for our company." He turned the screen around, showing a sophisticated financial monitoring system. It's designed to help families identify and prevent gambling addiction and financial fraud. We're calling it a lighthouse in day, because sometimes you need a beacon to find your way back. The program had already been tested and approved by our development team. It would be launched next quarter as a free service to local banks and family support organizations. "This isn't about making money," Marcus explained, looking at me. "It's about turning our family's story into something that helps others." Mom reached for her tissues, but this time she was smiling through her tears. Dad cleared his throat. "I owe everyone an apology too," he said. "I spent years measuring success in profit margins and status symbols. I forgot that real success is having a family that stands together, even when standing means saying no to someone you love." Little Sophie, now 6, tugged at my sleeve. "Uncle Alex, can we show them the surprise now?" I nodded and she ran inside, returning with a large wrapped package. Inside was a new sign for the beach house entrance. "Mitchell Family Technology Center, where innovation meets community." "We're expanding the education program," I announced. "Free coding classes for local kids, scholarship opportunities, and family financial literacy workshops." Marcus will be heading the community outreach division. But only Marcus added quickly, "If the board approves. No special treatment, remember." We all laughed, but there was pride in that laughter. Pride in how far he'd come, in how far we'd all come. As the sun set over Sunset Cove, I watched my family scattered across the deck. Mom and Dad slow dancing to the beach music. Stephanie and Marcus helping the kids with their coding homework. The ocean breeze carrying away the last remnants of our old patterns. The beach house stood strong against the darkening sky, its lights welcoming and warm. No longer a source of envy or resentment, but a testament to what families can build when they choose truth over enabling, growth over greed, and love over appearances. "You know," Marcus said, joining me at the railing, "I finally understand why you drive that old Camry. It's not about what you have, it's about what you build." I smiled, thinking of the long road we'd traveled. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built on the ruins of what we thought we wanted. The waves crashed softly below, a rhythmic reminder that change, like the tide, is constant. But unlike the tide, change doesn't have to be cyclical. Sometimes it can be transformative, permanent, real. The beach house lights reflected off the water, a true lighthouse for our family's new journey. And this time, we were all heading in the same direction. The end.